What's good, everybody? My name is Joshua McLean, and welcome to the Sew Rogan Experience. Heyo! Back again, episode number something. I'm not even keeping track. I'm having so much fun that I think it's number 5. Whatever. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But we're back. Welcome to the Sew Rogan Experience. I am super excited for my next guest because she's an old friend. She's not old, but she's a friend that I've known for a long time. Sorry, April. I wasn't calling you old, I swear. Before I bring April on, we have had some traction. I love it. Thank you for everybody that has been listening or watching. I just feel like I should tell you, you can find us on YouTube, of course, across all social media platforms, but also you can listen to us on Spotify. Right now, I think it's Google Podcast, and very, very soon, as I get the thumbs up, Apple Podcast as well. So we're trying to get as many avenues for you people to find us as humanly possible. So enough about that. I just wanted to say thank you and just be on the lookout. More and more. We got so much planned. I'm so excited. So let me jump into it. April Story is my next guest. Now, April, I'm going to bring you on. Let me make sure I do this right. There you are.
Hello.
We good? Awesome.
Yep.
Welcome to the show officially.
Thank you.
You are my old friend. Like, I was trying to think before I got on. When did we meet? Do you have any like?
Oh gosh.
I met you in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
I was working at the Sewing and Vacuum Authority. Shout out. Woo, woo.
Yep. In the old location when it was next to PetSmart.
Shelbyville Road. Wow.
Was it
yeah.
PetSmart? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yep.
It's been years. It's been a handful of years. And right as I was kind of leaving, I moved to Palm Coast in November of 2021. You were starting a whole new event. Actually, you had been doing it for probably a year or so at that point. But April's Craft Room, which I definitely want to talk about, you've been busy. I mean, it seems like you have not stopped sewing. You've not stopped creating, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I can tell by the wall of fabric behind you.
Yep.
So, you know what? I'm screwing this up. I'm supposed to let you introduce yourself.
Oh.
So please do so. Tell them who you are.
All righty. Hello, I am April Story. I am from April's Craft Room. And I started a YouTube channel many years ago. And ultimately, when I decided to get serious about it, it was when I was working on quilting. And I have been doing this for, I don't know, 5-6 years now, maybe. I got serious about it. Right. I think I got serious about it 4 years ago. And then I got monetized 3 years ago. And since then, I've just kept going. My big thing is getting new people who are learning to sew, helping them through patterns and easy patterns that anybody can put together, because there are a lot of people who want to have a hobby, and sewing is a great hobby, especially quilting, because when you're done with your project, you have something that you can use or you can give away or you can donate. I mean, there's always something that you can do with it. And so I try to keep that in mind and come up with projects that you can do quickly, and you still have time to do all the things you need to do.
Yeah, that's true. So one thing I loved, and I feel like you started that channel, like I thought you were you were jumping up the ranks at least a year, I thought, before I left. But anyway, you've been doing it for a while now. But when I remember when you first really got into it, it was not long before I moved. All of the quilts that you were teaching and talking about and showcasing were easier quilts. And I loved that concept, that idea, because there's a ton of people who are doing advanced quilting, high level quilting, which you can do. I know you're capable of doing so, but a lot of times that deters new sewers or people, like you said, who they're not retired. They don't have all day to sit. And so I love that you were taking that approach to it. Also, your videos are a ton of fun, and so it's obvious that you're having fun with it. I mean, but you're providing education, but you're doing it in a fun way, which is literally what this show's about. Except no one wants quilting tips from me, so I have people like you in my life.
You've
So
got some quilting tips. I've seen you behind a sewing machine.
I got some skills. I don't let too many people know. I'll just say
Oh,
that.
okay.
It's funny, like so I never piece, and I have talked about this on here. I don't like sewing straight lines. And so I've gotten really into like free motion and thread painting and the artsy
Oh, yeah.
side of quilting, which is totally fun, but there's no pattern. So it's not something that I can really teach because
Right.
I'm like, I don't, when I start a quilt or wall, whatever you want to call it, when I start my new project, I don't have an end goal. I just start
In mind.
playing. Right.
Yeah.
So it's somebody says, well, what was your thought process? I didn't have one. Yeah.
Those are the best kinds of projects.
Well, I agree. Unless you are doing a YouTube channel where you're like, hey,
Well,
look,
yeah.
this is the technique that I'm trying to give you. So
I
it's
can tell
awesome.
you sometimes when I am doing a tutorial, what I think's gonna be the end result is not.
Yeah, it's not.
But,
Well, that's
you
part of the
gotta roll with the
process.
punches.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Good friend of ours, Joanne Lamb, her sign off for, we do a quilt talk every Monday. She says, enjoy the journey. And I'm like, that
Oh,
couldn't be
yes,
truer.
absolutely.
So I love
Yep.
it. Okay, well, fantastic. So let me jump into the questions
Okay,
because I think it'll spawn some fun conversation. So, how do we
sure.
create? You've already pretty much answered the question by just describing what you're doing, literally. But my first question is this: how do we create a new generation of sewers? In other words, how do we get new people excited about the sewing industry? What are your thoughts?
So, I think it depends on what their focus is. So you've got some people who want to preserve tradition. And I think that that group of people would be interested in how quilting has been done, how it's gone through the years, and some of them maybe were inspired by their grandparents or their parents or,
Sure,
they they have the interest because when they were younger their family was involved in it.
sure, yeah,
Those are
yeah,
the
yeah.
easier people to get, I think.
The
The
easier
ones
targets, yeah,
who
absolutely.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So I know when I was younger, I went through phases. So when I had young kids, scrapbooking was the thing to do, and it was preserving your memories. And I think just like they got scrapbooking to interest me because I was preserving memories, we can focus on what it is about sewing and quilting that will allow you to preserve memories. Maybe you use shirts from family members and you start out
t-shirt
that
quilt.
way
Yeah,
where you're
right.
right, where you're making a memory quilt or a memory bear or something like that. And then once you get the people involved from that perspective, then they might want to move on to, oh, well, maybe I want to buy some fabric and, make a quilt out of a pattern that using a pattern that I like. And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to using what was available to you because, you wanted something that you could remember a loved one by.
Ooh, I love that. I've interviewed so many people, and no one has brought up the fact that the tradition of the family tradition, like it's keeping it in the family, keeping that
Right.
thing alive, keeping it going. That's great. I didn't even think about that, but there's so many people who come in the shop and they do, well, my grandma sewed, or my
Right.
mom used to sew, and they're like, I didn't know that it was really still a thing. I didn't know people still sewed like to this level. I talk
Right.
about all the time. People who don't go into quilt shops have no idea what's happening in this
Yes.
industry. It's thriving, but
Yes.
that's a good point. So getting people, well, it's almost like, so instead of getting them inspired, they're kind of. It seems like if we look at the people who are already somewhat inspired by keeping their family name going or their tradition going, it's more
Right.
about making sure that they have the support.
Right.
I always think as a
Yes.
shop owner, how can I help? And it's like, ooh, offering support. Oh, fantastic! Your grandma used to do that, and you're interested in that. Well, here's a class, or go check
Right.
out this YouTube channel or that. So that's a really good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think of it. I'm always going, okay, well, how do we get people who've never sewn, excited? And it's all about letting them know that the fabric is so different. Well, maybe they actually liked what their grandma did.
Could
Maybe
be.
their mom did. Maybe I shouldn't deter. So see, this is why I like doing this. It gives me another way to look at it.
All different perspectives.
Absolutely. because we're all
Yep.
different people.
Yes.
Okay, I love that. So, question two: what advice or tips would you give to not necessarily new sewers, but just sewers in general? Is there anything that you just on a day to day basis you utilize?
Yes. It's supposed to be fun. It is
Yeah,
not. There aren't rules. There are rules, but you don't have to follow them.
there's no
Don't
rule.
get bogged down by so and so said that I have to do it this way in order for it to be right. Just do it for the enjoyment. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. You either rip out the stitches or you leave it in. When I
Or
was
leave it in.
first yeah, when I was first quilting, I was taking a block of or doing a block of the month with my mother. And the colors that we were using, I was learning things that were very important on how to quilt. The colors were horrible. They were, dull colors, and I hated it. I hated it. So mom would come over and we would work on the next block, and I would sew, two half square triangles together but the wrong way. And I would say, "You know what? It's a perfectly good stitch. I am not ripping it out." And my mother would
Right.
say, "Well, I'll rip it out." And I'm like, "No, we're leaving it there."
Leave it.
So don't don't worry if it's not following the pattern exactly. Don't worry if you decide, well, wait a minute, I don't want to do it this way. I want to change it up and do it another way. Do you. Don't worry
Mm,
about the quilt police coming because they would have taken me away a long time ago. So it's all good.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't even give them a chance. Now, there
No,
are people who their goal is to go and enter into competitions and win
now there,
prizes.
yeah,
And hey, I'm not knocking
that's
you guys for
different.
doing that. That is a
Right,
different type of sewing.
correct.
You said it right out of the gate. It's supposed to be fun. Like that
Yes,
that's which is why I do the type of sewing or quilting that I do, because that's what's fun to me. And
right.
you know what? I've already said this like 3 times on this show, but like Bob Ross said it what was it, happy little accidents. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
hey,
Oh,
that actually
absolutely.
ended up being okay. Let it go with it. But
Yes.
you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you hate it yourself, rip it out. That's what seam rippers are for.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's all about if you can live with it, don't worry about whether or not your mom can.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the first guest I had, no, the second guest, excuse me, first guest was mom. Second guest was
Uh-huh.
Nina Klotfelter, and she pointed out, she's like, one of her tips was, how'd she say it? Well, along the same lines of you, we're all humans. We're going to make mistakes, but don't point out the mistakes you made to everyone. Like you're your own
Right.
worst critic. But there's
Yes.
no need to point that out. No one's going to see it,
Right.
unless
Only
you're
yeah,
highlighting it for them. It's
correct.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you enjoy the process? Yeah, I agree 100%.
Right.
That's such solid advice. And honestly, it should be so obvious, but I think people forget
Mhm.
that. I
Oh,
really do.
I've gotten comments saying, "Oh, thank you for telling me I can use Walmart fabric," or "Thank you for telling me that it doesn't have to be perfect." And I'm like, "I shouldn't have to tell you that." But
Shouldn't
if
have to
that
tell
gives
you that.
you the freedom, then good. I'm glad that you heard it and that, that you're gonna listen.
Yeah, and hopefully remember that if you're starting to get frustrated. It it
Right.
it's sometimes easier said than done, right? So we try to
Oh,
practice what we
absolutely.
preach, and yeah, I
Yes.
know. But
Yeah,
we're all learning. And so yeah, have fun.
exactly.
Have fun.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, question number 3. Where do you see the sewing industry? And sewing is pretty broad, so I'm not just talking
Right.
about quilting. I know
Right.
you're well, actually, let me back up. Do you do are you other than quilting, do you do garment sewing or bag making or
I have done garment sewing in the past.
yeah,
Like, when I was pregnant with my first child, I sewed all my maternity clothes. I made all my maternity clothes. So I have done it in the past. I prefer quilting, but, I can do garment sewing, and I do bags every now and again. It's just nothing that I do all the time, but I have done some bags.
so well, April's craft room,
Yes.
that leaves some room, but I assumed that you were still pretty much a quilter at heart. I
Yes,
mean,
I am.
that's your main focus. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Right.
So So when I say where do you see this industry going, I'm not just referring to quilting, but just the
Mhm.
sewing in general. So where do you see the sewing industry going, and let's say where will we be in 10 years or so? What do you think?
Yeah, I think people will always want to sew. I think there are some people who just prefer to make their own clothes. When I think about making clothes, I think I can go buy that for less than what I can make it for now. It used to be people would sew because it was less expensive. It was easy to go buy fabric. It was not expensive. You made it, and my mom made my outfits all the time.
Right.
So I think as we move forward in time, there's going to be more technology. So
Mm,
now we've got multi-needle or multi-needle embroidery machines that
oh,
people
yeah.
are using in their own home for recreational sewing.
Yep.
So I think we'll always have our regular sewing machines because I mean they're more sophisticated now. Um,
But it used to be an
I don't.
appliance. You're right. Like
Yes,
everyone
yes,
had a vacuum, a microwave, a lamp, and a sewing machine. That was the Sears like
right.
appliance department. So that's why there
Yes,
are sew and
yes,
vac shops across the country still. But so
right,
everybody used to have a sewing machine as just an appliance because that's what you did. You fixed stuff and it was cheaper to make clothes. Now it's
right.
more expensive to make your own clothes, but I do think people are the younger generations, they're upcycling. So they're going to Goodwill, buying something,
Yes,
chopping it up and making it their own. So I still
yes,
have, I think it's almost a full circle, but yeah, to go into a
right,
shop and buy a new yard of fabric, it's more expensive.
right.
And yeah,
So I think the people who are going to be sewing 10 years from now are the people who do it because they enjoy sewing. They enjoy making things. They're crafty. They they don't do it for out of necessity or in order to save money. They do it because it's something that brings them joy and relieves stress for them and because they love it, not
absolutely.
because yeah.
Because they have to. It's
Yeah.
not a necessity, right? No,
Right.
this is a hobby. It's a passion,
Right.
and even though, well, most hobbies are expensive to be fair, but like people don't
Yeah,
mind
they are.
spending money. Yeah, like right. Most people don't mind spending money on things that they love. That's why it was so
Exactly.
much easier to sell a sewing machine than a vacuum cleaner, even though the sewing machine costs like triple.
Right.
Ain't nobody wanting to spend
Absolutely.
money on a vacuum. Yeah. um, so yeah. So what about if I ask you specifically quilting, like how do you think the traditional quilting blocks, and do you think that will just always continue, or do you think it's going to get more wild? Like the art quilts now are insane with the mixed mediums, and like
Mhm.
they're using all this fiber arts, and you think it's just
Right.
going to keep getting wilder, or is it going to kind of like plateau
Absolutely.
and go? You think so? Okay,
Yeah, I think it'll keep getting wilder. You'll always have your purists who do the
uh,
piecing and that, but
sure.
you're as people get more comfortable with no rules, you don't have to follow those rules. It isn't just for your bed or to cover up with. It could be, the decoration that you center a whole room around.
It's a wall hanging.
So
It's art. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's not a
yeah, I think
cat
it'll just
bed,
get
not a
wilder.
dog bed. All right,
Right,
quilters, you hear
right.
me? I see it all the time. I'm like, that is gorgeous. What are you doing with it? Well, I'm gonna put it over the couch because my cat sits up on the I'm like, oh my God, no. It's
Yeah,
art. Hang it up.
yeah.
Oy.
Yeah, I think
Um,
people will come up with even more fun ways to make quilts,
yeah.
more things to
Yeah,
make them out of, and
I
yeah,
think they're gonna keep pushing the envelope, and I
absolutely.
see this stuff and I'm like, oh, I'm so inspired. And a lot of people get, and again, back to I'm gonna be a broken record, but April's craft
Mhm.
room, your approach to it doesn't deter people from wanting to learn and get into quilting.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see some of the quilts at quilt shows where they're being judged are phenomenal, and it took
Oh my
years. And
goodness.
some people, and I've heard friends and customers say this, they're like, I could never do that. I might as well give up. And I'm going, no, 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 no. Don't.
Right.
You should say, well, okay, now what do you have to work for? Give yourself some motivation, not
Right.
being deterred, because
Right.
it's not about.
Appreciate that somebody did that and put all that work in. That doesn't mean you have to do that. And
Right.
it could be once you get started. I mean, I would say I'm not going to have a quilt in the show, but I'm not going to say that because you never know. 5 years from now, I might decide, well, maybe I do want to put a quilt in a show. So,
Right. And it's a totally different mindset. If you're making a quilt to be judged and that's your goal is prize
oh yeah,
money, well, okay, I don't know how you're going to have fun with that process, but hey,
right.
you do you, like you said. And so if you enjoy it, more power to you.
Some people are hyper competitive.
I know.
So yeah,
That's true.
yep.
And some people are, I hate to use the word anal, but some people are very
Yeah, they are.
much. And so I'm always like, okay, maybe that type of quilting is not for you. There are other things out
Right.
there, and I want to make sure that people are aware of that. So my points are not exactly every one of my 400 half square triangles didn't match up, and I'm like, why are you doing that quilt? If you're,
Right.
so yeah, but we're all different. Okay,
Yes, we are.
awesome. So it sounds to me like you still have positive hopes and you're optimistic that the
Oh,
sewing industry is
absolutely.
not going anywhere. Okay,
No,
good.
no. Mm-mm.
I don't think
There are
so
too
either.
many people who watch channels and watch quilting. They don't do it yet, but the more people that they watch and the more that we can convince them that it's okay, try it. You'll never know until you try it. The better off you'll be.
Absolutely. Well, you got 44,000 people watching you. So, I mean, you're doing something right. And if there's I don't know how many channels there are, but there's a ton of people out there.
Oh yeah.
It's just what I don't hear often enough. And my whole motivation for this podcast is talk about exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Making sure people know we're not going anywhere and
Yes.
it's an awesome industry. You should be excited to start taking part in it.
Yeah.
So I love it. Okay, I'm doing a speed round. I don't know if you've actually listened to any of my previous episodes, but I'm throwing you a little bit of a curveball. We got a speed round here.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay. Uh-huh.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Ooh, you're the first red. Okay. Favorite brand of machine? And I know you got a bunch of different brands, so this might be hard.
I'm thinking brother. I'm really liking my brother Luminaire.
Okay. Well, okay,
Mhm.
rightfully so. That are you still you still have multiple machines like your
Oh
Q
yeah.
series and yeah, okay, cool.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
So and by the way, when
Mhm.
I met you, I think the first machine, because I was actually on the sales floor back then, I think it was an
Yes.
M7, right?
Yes. Yep.
And
And
then it
I
was like
still
a
have it,
Q,
and I still love that one.
and
Yep.
then it was which is a Janome, if anybody didn't know, and then you
Correct.
have a Bernina Q something, don't you?
The Q16. Yes.
Q16, and then a
Yes.
Brother Luminaire. So that right there
Yeah.
is high praise to Brother because those are
Yeah, it is.
two serious machines. Now, to be fair, all three of those machines are capable of different things. So that is like the
Right.
trifecta of that's awesome. What a setup.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
I
cool.
have a
And
problem that a 12-step program might be able to help.
yeah, well, I say it all the time. Step one is admitting you have a problem. So
So there you
congratulations.
go. I'm done with step 1. I quit.
Hey, I need a button so I can make some applause noise. I'll attempt to edit it in later. Okay, back to the speed round. Favorite band or type of music if you don't have a favorite band?
Smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz.
Mhm.
I can see that while you're sewing smooth jazz playing in the background, but I
Mhm.
honestly figured it would be something a little bit more. I would have pegged you for like a classic rock gal or something. I,
Oh yeah.
I, maybe it's your
Yeah.
bubbly, on the show, you're very well in person, you're very energetic and fun. So smooth
Yeah.
jazz though, good for you. I love some good
Yeah.
smooth jazz.
I do too.
Okay. Desert island movie. Do you know what I mean by when I say desert island movie?
Yes.
So like
Do
if
you
you
have
were
to be
stuck on an
deserted?
island. No, no, no. So if you were like, what's your favorite movie? Let me make it easier.
6 days and 7 nights. And there is an island on that. They're stuck on an island
Okay.
where the
So
pirates
That's right. I haven't seen that forever. So it's so funny. The reason I rephrased it is I thought in my mind everybody would understand when I said desert island movie. What that the it's a game we used to play when I was younger. Like if you were stranded on a desert and you only had one movie you could watch for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, that would be it. 6 days and 7 nights.
I didn't realize, and you're the second person I could tell by your face they were thinking like I don't watch too many movies with desert islands in them. So, isn't that the Anne Hesh? No.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Anne Hesh and, oh my gosh. Yeah, Harrison Ford.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that movie in forever. Okay,
It's
though, good.
great. It's a
You knew the
romantic comedy, and it's got action. It's the perfect movie.
it is a romance. Yeah, okay, I remember it.
Mhm.
Well, I'll watch anything with Harrison Ford. So, okay, awesome. And then okay, and I just love. I'm a movie fanatic, and a music is a huge part of my life. So I love just hearing what.
Okay.
And everyone has had a totally different answer, which is great. So, thank you for basically dealing with me through that.
No worries.
How can people find you? Like, what do you got coming up, and how can people find you? I know we've mentioned it a few times, but let them know how to actually
Right.
find you.
YouTube, look for April's Craft Room, and I have I'm kind of going down a technology road, so I've gotten into sublimation, and I
Hey,
make T-shirts. So sublimation is something that it it comes and it goes. Right now, I think it's really popular, but
yeah,
there are limitations to sublimation. However, I figured out a way that I can incorporate using sublimation in quilting. So I want to do some episodes where I do that and show people how I do that. And then alternative ways in case they don't have a sublimation printer, that they can use.
sublimation's huge. In fact, I get cups and all sorts of stuff done, but I mean,
Yeah.
and the colors you can get are fantastic. I, I'm gonna have to watch that episode because I won't ask you to describe it here, but incorporating sublimation with quilting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Like putting
It's a
photos on?
surprise.
Okay, I
It's a
have so many
surprise.
questions. I was like, I have so many questions. Yeah, I get it. You're like,
Good, good.
shut up and
Hopefully
watch.
everybody else does too.
You're
It
like,
hasn't
shut up and
come
watch
out yet,
April's
it's but I'm
Craft Room.
working on. So, yeah,
Oh, okay,
stay
okay.
tuned.
It's not out
Stay
yet.
tuned. You're
Stay
right,
tuned.
right. Yeah.
So April's Craft Room on YouTube. Definitely subscribe and follow. And I would go way back and start towards the beginning so you can, if you're a new sewer, new quilter for sure. Although,
Yeah.
well, actually, let me ask you: if someone watches your very last episode, is it still somewhat beginner friendly? Do you kind of keep that going throughout,
Oh,
or have
yeah.
you been okay?
No, I try to keep it very beginner friendly because even people who have sewn for a long time can make the quilts that I make, and it's not anything that would be boring. But I always want to keep in mind that those people who are just coming in, I don't want to scare them off. So I
Right.
keep it where anybody can come in and watch the video and figure out, oh, okay, I think I could do that. Now you might have to go back and learn how to do a quarter-inch seam or, your basics. And I'm trying to do shorts on just your basic quarter-inch seam, how you clean your sewing machine, how you thread your sewing machine, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
we're working on some of that stuff as well. Some of that, and there's a lot of information out there, and it's all about finding the person that you like to give you that
exactly.
information. I've watched some
Right.
videos and I'm like, great information, but I'm falling asleep. This person is a dud, And
Yes.
so it's
Right.
like, yeah, the more people making that kind of content, the better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
truthfully. Well, fantastic. All right, April's Craft Room on YouTube. I love it. I'm
On
so
YouTube.
glad that you stuck with it, and you more than stuck with it. You're crushing it, and it's so awesome.
Well,
And
thank
I love
you.
what you're doing. So yeah, and thank you so much for. Well, it's so nice to see you. I wish it was in person, but you know what? I'll
You.
take this over nothing.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
truthfully, thanks for coming on the show. You're one of the
You're
first people
welcome.
I
Thank you
thought
for
of. I
having
was like
me.
going through my phone, and I'm like, oh yeah, April, absolutely.
Cool.
So
Yep.
all
Thank
right,
you. I
well.
appreciate you thinking of me.
Of course, absolutely. All right. Well, again, April's Craft Room, just in case you guys
That's
didn't hear me
right.
say it the
April's
first
craft
10
room.
times. All right. You're awesome. Thank you so much, April.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you
Bye.
later. All right. Bye.
Alrighty.